In the latest update, there's been a couple additions to the Applique tool that I think are really nice and very helpful. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at what those are. I'm just going to bring in a piece of artwork here. Just bring in this bird, and let's go ahead and just convert it to Applique. So if I come down here, I can convert it to Applique, and you can see that if I do a slow redraw, I have a placement stitch, a tack down stitch, and then I have a border stitch, typical for a piece of applique. If I come in here and select it, we can come over here to the properties box, and this is where you're going to find the first edition. If you come down here to the sew underlay, what this is going to do is add an underlay to the border stitch. So as you saw there was a placement, a tack down, and then the border. So if I come back to it, select it, and I click on sew underlay and hit apply, and I do a slow redraw, you're going to see I have a placement, I have a tack down, and then I have an underlay that's going to go down before the satin border. And that is very helpful, especially if you cut the fabric yourself. You don't use like a fabric cutter like a Brother Scan and Cut or something like that, because it'll help kind of lock it down a little bit. And you might have noticed in the past that when you go to the Applique Extra tab, you could use a zigzag underlay for a type, but there's a difference with this one. I'm going to go ahead and select it and hit apply, and I'm going to come back here and I'm going to uncheck the sew underlay. I'm going to hit apply. So what you'll see now is it'll do a placement, and then it's just going right into the tack down being that zigzag. So you could achieve that zigzag underlay, if you will, but it is different because of when it takes place. So with this setting, if I come back to it, this is the actual tack down stitch. So this is happening after you lay the fabric down. And in my opinion, and if I'm going to be cutting the fabric myself after the tack down, I definitely am not going to use a zigzag, because I don't want it to be that wide. I want to be able to hide the cutaway stitches, when I cut around the edge. So I'm going to use a run. Now, the one thing that's nice with this is that in this update, there's a double run as well, which is very helpful. Instead of just doing one pass, it's going to do two. And this is something that I will actually use quite a bit. And the reason is because whenever I'm doing something that has multiple pieces of applique that kind of butt up against each other, I might not do the border until the end. And so by being able to do a double run, it's going to really lock that fabric down and hold it in place really well until I can come back and put the border on it. So in the past, what I've done is just broke apart applique, and I've just had to kind of finagle it a little bit, like had to kind of create custom applique. And so this is a nice feature. So I'll just hit apply here, and you'll see that if I do the placement, you'll see the tack down now goes, and it's going to go back on itself. So it's going to lock it in really nice. So just to show you too, that if I come in here and I do a zigzag again and hit apply, I come back to the regular settings, I do the sew underlay, just to show you that this is the sew underlay is actually underlay for the satin and not your tack down. You can see that it'll do placement, and then it's doing the zigzag tack down because that's what I selected. And now it's going to do the zigzag underlay for the border. And one of the things, again, that I really like about this new feature, I'm going to change this back here. I'll put it to a double run. And one of the things I really like about this new feature for the sew underlay is when you're doing a placement, you lay your fabric down, and then you do your tack down, and then you come in and you cut around the edge. It kind of frays up a little bit. It's not always clean, and I like to actually use a zigzag over the top right after I cut the fabric, and I usually would just create that myself. And so it's very nice to have that I won't have to do that extra step. So this is a really great feature. I do recommend it if you are using your if you're cutting the fabric yourself. So those are the new features that have been added to the Applique tool. You have the sew underlay, and in the tack down you have the ability to do a double run, and both of those are very welcomed additions to the software, and I'll definitely be utilizing those.